When I was younger, I never imagined that a day would come when I would be living alone. But here I am, at 75 years old, living a unique experience full of learnings. Living alone in old age is like embarking on a journey of self-discovery. It is an opportunity to explore our independence, find inner peace, and get to know ourselves better. I remember the day my children left home. It was a moment of pride and apprehension, but over time I realized that this new phase of life could be very rewarding. Of course, not everything is rosy. There are unique challenges that arise when we decide or find ourselves in the situation of living alone. Sometimes loneliness knocks on the door. Other times we find ourselves wondering if we will be able to take care of everything on our own. But don't worry, over time you will learn to deal with these issues over the years. I spoke to many friends who also live alone and realized that our experiences are similar. We share joys, difficulties, and, most importantly, learning. That's why I decided to record this video to share with you some essential tips I learned on this journey. My goal is to help them avoid some of the pitfalls that can arise when living alone in old age. I want you to make the most of this phase of life with safety, health, and lots of joy. So let's go. Prepare your tea, settle into the armchair, and let's talk about how to make this experience of living alone something really special. Number 1, cultivate social connections. My dears, the first thing I learned living alone is that we cannot isolate ourselves. I remember when I was widowed about 10 years ago. At first, I barely left the house. I spent days without talking to anyone other than the building doorman. It was then that I realized that this was not doing me any good. It is very important to keep in touch with the people we love and make new friends. Don't let the fact that you live alone separate you from others. Do you know what I started doing? Every day I call one of my children or grandchildren, even if just to say, "Hi, how are you?" This makes all the difference in my day. Another thing that helped me a lot was the volunteer. I started helping at the neighborhood library twice a week. I met wonderful people and I feel useful. If you like animals, how about offering to walk the dogs at a shelter? Or if you prefer something calmer, you can knit to donate to hospitals. The important thing is not to be isolated. Invite friends for coffee, participate in community center activities, join a walking group. The possibilities are endless. Remember, maintaining social connections not only makes us happier, it's also great for our mental and physical health. Number 2, prioritize your health. Speaking of health, my friends, this is a fundamental part of living alone. I confess that, at first, it was a challenge. With no one to remind me to take my medicine or let me exercise, it was easy for my health to fall by the wayside. But I soon realized that if I wanted to remain independent, I needed to take good care of my health. I started by creating a routine. Every morning after breakfast, I go for a 30-minute walk in the park near my house. At first it was difficult to create the habit, but now I miss it when I don't go. To make sure you don't forget your medicines, use one of those pill holders with dividers for each day of the week. Every Monday morning, I set aside an entire week's worth of medication. I also set an alarm on my cell phone to remind me of the times. And we can't forget mental health. Sometimes living alone can get us a little down. What helps me a lot is meditation. Every night before going to sleep, I do 10 minutes of breathing and relaxation. Believe me, it makes all the difference in sleeping well and waking up in a good mood. Oh, and don't forget to go to the doctor regularly. I schedule all checkup appointments at the beginning of the year and put them on the kitchen calendar so there's no way to forget. Remember, taking care of your health is not a luxury, it is a necessity, especially when we live alone. Number 3, ensure your safety. When we talk about living alone in old age, safety should be a priority. I confess that at first I didn't give it much importance, but after a little scare, I slipped in the bathroom and couldn't get up for almost an hour. I realized that I needed to take some measures. The first thing I did was install grab bars in the bathroom. It seems silly, but it makes all the difference. I also added tape to the stair treads and replaced all the rugs with non-slip models. Another important thing is lighting. I installed motion sensor lights in the hallways and entrance to the house. This way, I'm never left in the dark, which reduces the risk of trips and falls. An investment I made that gives me peace of mind is an emergency system. It's a button that hangs around my neck. If anything happens, just press, and it will automatically call for help. It may seem like overkill, but I feel much safer knowing I have this feature. Oh, and don't forget to keep emergency numbers handy. I have a list taped to the fridge with the phone numbers of my children, my doctor, and the emergency room. You never know when you'll need it, do you? Number 4, avoid pitfalls. You know what's funny, my friends? When we start living alone, sometimes we fall into some traps without even realizing it. In my case, it was with food. With no one to cook with or for, I started eating a lot of junk food. I remember I went through a phase eating only sandwiches and instant soup. It was practical, but far from healthy. I realized that I was feeling tired and lacking energy. That's when I decided to change. I started planning my meals in advance. Every Sunday, I make a list of what you cook for the week and go shopping for. I discovered that I like cooking while listening to the radio. It almost became a ritual. I make enough food for 2 or 3 meals, so I don't have to cook every day. Another habit I had to change was my sedentary lifestyle. It was so easy to spend all day sitting in front of the TV. Now, I've made it my goal to take at least 5,000 steps a day. Use a watch that counts steps. It almost became a competition with myself. And we can't forget about sleep, can we? I spent time going to bed very late and waking up every hour later. It messed up my whole day. Now, I have a time to go, to bed, and to wake up. It makes all the difference in mood. The important thing is to create healthy goals and routines. It may be difficult at first, but over time it becomes a habit, and our body thanks you. Number 5, simplify your space. My dears, this is a lesson that took me a while to learn. When the children left home, I was left living alone in a huge house. At first, I thought it was great to have so much space, but over time, I realized that it was becoming difficult to manage everything. Cleaning that big house was quite a challenge, not to mention the maintenance. There was always a leak here, paint peeling there. It was then that I decided to downsize, as the young people say. I sold a big house and moved to a smaller but much more practical apartment. Now, I only have the space I actually need and use. It's much easier to clean and organize. And the best part, I have more time and energy to do the things I really enjoy. Of course, it wasn't easy to deal with so many things accumulated over the years, but it was a liberating process. Donating objects that I no longer used made me feel good, knowing that other people could use what, for me, was no longer useful. If you're not ready to move yet, how about starting by simplifying one amenity at a time? Start with the guest room that has become a storage room or the garage full of junk. You will see how lighter you feel. And remember, there's no shame in even asking for help. If cleaning or maintaining your home is difficult, consider hiring someone to help, even just once a month. Your health and well-being are worth the investment. Number 6, keep your purpose alive. My friends, this is perhaps the most important tip of all. When we retire and start living alone, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our life has lost its purpose. Nothing more wrong. I remember when I retired. In the first few months, it was a party. I slept late, watched TV all day. But soon I started to feel empty. It was then that I realized I needed to find a new purpose. I started exploring old and new hobbies. I started painting again, something I loved when I was younger but had abandoned. I also ventured into gardening. You guys need to see how beautiful my balcony looks now. But what really changed my life was volunteer work. I started teaching adult literacy classes twice a week. Seeing the sparkle in the eyes of someone who can read for the first time, there's no better feeling. The important thing is to find something that motivates you, that makes you want to get out of bed every morning with enthusiasm. It could be learning a new language, doing volunteer work, taking care of your grandchildren, writing your memoirs. The possibilities are endless. Having a purpose not only keeps us active and engaged, but it's also great for our mental health. It makes us feel useful and important. And believe me, we all have something valuable to offer the world, no matter our age. Number 7, don't hesitate to ask for help. My dears, this is a lesson I learned the hard way. At the beginning of my journey living alone, I had this fixed idea that I needed to do everything on my own. After all, I wanted to prove to myself and others that I was capable of holding my own. The result? I just got overwhelmed and stressed. It wasn't until I almost fell trying to change a light bulb that I realized there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Learning that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it is a sign of wisdom. Now, when I need to do some repairs at home, I call my gender or a neighbor. For heavier cleaning tasks, I hired a cleaner who comes once a month. And it's not just for practical tasks that we can ask for help. If we are feeling alone or sad, we should not hesitate to call a friend or family member. Sometimes just talking makes us feel better. Another thing I discovered was the support of the community. At my neighborhood community center, for example, there is a support group for elderly people who live alone. Attending these meetings made me realize that I am not alone in my difficulties, and I learned a lot of valuable tips from the other participants. Remember, ask for help so as not to diminish our independence. In fact, knowing when we need support allows us to live safer and happier for longer. Number 8, take care of your environment. My friends, how important it is to keep our house in order when we live alone. I confess that at first, when I became a widower, I let the mess take over. Scattered clothes, dishes accumulated in the sink. I thought it didn't matter since I was alone, but I soon realized how that disorder was affecting my mood and even my health. A disorganized home can be dangerous. It's easier to trip over large objects on the floor, for example. Not to mention that the accumulation of dust and dirt is not good for our lungs. It was then that I decided to create an organization routine. Every morning after breakfast, I dedicate half an hour to tidying the house. I make the bed, wash the breakfast dishes, check the living room. It seems like a little, but it makes all the difference. I also learned the importance of keeping everything in its place. What helped most was labeling drawers and boxes, especially for things that don't get used often. Additionally, I got rid of many objects that only accumulated space. I donated clothes that I hadn't worn in years and appliances that didn't even work properly anymore. Today, my home is simpler and more functional, and I feel more comfortable and safe. Taking care of the environment in which we live directly impacts our well-being. A clean and organized home is a home that welcomes us and inspires us to live better. Number 9, establish a routine. My dears, when I started living alone, one of the things I missed most was routine. Without work commitments or the presence of family, the days began to transform. That's when I realized I needed to create a new structure for my days. Establishing a routine may seem boring at first glance, but believe me, it makes all the difference. I started creating fixed times to wake up and go to sleep, and this helped regulate my sleep and made me more energetic during the day. Then, I added other activities. For example, every morning after breakfast, I go for a walk in the park. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go to the community center for Tai Chi classes, and on Wednesday afternoons, I meet my friends to play dominoes. But be careful. The routine does not need and should not use too much sawdust. Leave space for spontaneity and different activities. The important thing is to have a basic structure that gives us a sense of purpose and organization. One tip that works well for me is to use a calendar on the kitchen wall. I write down all my activities, doctor appointments and appointments. This way, I start the day knowing exactly what I have to do. Having a routine not only helps us organize our time better, but it also contributes to our mental health. It gives us a sense of control over life, reduces anxiety, and allows us to make the most of each day. Well, my dear friends, we have reached the end of our conversation. I hope that these tips and experiences I shared can help you live better on this journey of living alone in old age. As we have seen, the secret is to focus on our health, safety, and well-being. We cannot forget to take care of our body and mind, keep our space organized and safe, and cultivate meaningful relationships with friends and family. Living alone in old age can be a challenge, but it is also an incredible opportunity for self-discovery and personal growth. It is a time to value our independence, but without isolating ourselves from the world. Remember, each of us has a unique story, full of experiences and wisdom. Using this knowledge to live well and with purpose is the best way to enjoy this phase of life. And you? What experiences do you have to share about living alone? What challenges did they face, and what simple joys? Adoraria Saber. Leave your comments below. Let's exchange ideas and learn from each other. If you liked this content and want more tips on how to live well in old age, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This way, you don't miss any new videos. I want to thank all of you who stayed here, listening to the stories and advice of this old friend. Know that each of you is special and has a lot to offer the world, no matter your age. Always remember, you are not truly alone. There is an entire community around us ready to support us. Living alone can be a challenge, but it can also be one of the most rewarding experiences of our lives. It's an opportunity to rediscover ourselves, create new habits and make new friends. With affection, your old friend.